Struggling to prepare files to send to print? Worried you're not using the right file format or have the right resolution? In this video, we're going to cover the key ways to get the best result from your print files. And this will reduce the back and forth between the print house, manufacturer, or even us. This means you'll get your products and art files to print faster. If your art's saved out correctly, this can speed up production as the designer or whoever's printing your artwork doesn't have to chase you for assets, missing fonts, non-embedded files. And this most always delays things and sometimes even creates extra costs for you when supplying your art because you're paying for someone else's time to fix it. So the main ones we're going to cover here are making sure the artwork's in the right color mode, outlining fonts, embedding images, making sure you have bleed, checking that your blacks are true or rich blacks if they're background colors, how to save your art file out properly, and printing and checking your work before sending it to the printer. Let's jump into it. We use Illustrator to explain how we set up the art here because this is pretty much industry standard with setting up art. So if you're a Canva user, you're probably going to be pretty upset by this, but you need to do it in Illustrator. You can supply Canva files, but the design will need to set up inside Illustrator. So you might run into some roadblocks. If you do, reach out to your designer, they can help you or we can help you, but we'll get to that at the end. If you have Illustrator, you can follow along and these are all very handy tips to get your art working the best for the printer and have less back and forth. The three biggest problems we get when sent art is the fonts are not outlined, images are not embedded or supplied, or they are embedded and they're very low resolution. We show a dummy file of what we normally get sent. I'm not going to use an actual client's art because I don't want to shame a client. So I've made a dummy file and I'm going to show you all the problems we get and how to fix them. So if you want to send art to us, you won't have the same problem. All right, so someone goes, oh, I want matchbox. I want the top and back and design on the spine. So they send us a PDF and it looks something like this. Now they're like, oh, it's a great image. Font looks great. That's really great. So the thing you probably wouldn't know, but most art processors, they want to lay it out smaller, medium-sized prints, multiple page to get the best economies of scale for you, bring the cost down, and for the printer to move jobs quicker. So they'll need to open up your art. So let's open that up in Illustrator. Now it's already saying it can't find the image of the two birds already. And also it's not finding these fonts. So this is what I'm dealing with most of the time. When art's sent to me and they've not reached out and sent, so this can take a fair while to fix if I can't find the fonts. So first I got to be able to find the fonts. I can do that by going online and Googling these fonts, and sometimes they're at Adobe, but if they're a paid font, then either you need to supply it to the designer or you're going to have to pay for them to download the font because especially with production work, you should never use personal fonts. There should be commercial use. It's just good practice. Pay the designers who design the font. So let's just start here. The first thing you need to do is all printing pretty much is done in CMYK and your screens are in RGB. So you need to come down here and make sure that your art file is in CMYK mode, which is in file down the bottom, CMYK, not RGB. There's a whole reason for this. Colors look completely different. You get a wider range of color spectrum in RGB and you get a lot of disappointment if you think you're getting this nice blue color and it's printed and it's darker. So just work in the space and you're going to see what you're more likely to get, which is good. All right, so we've done that. Next thing, we need to find these fonts. So here, up to type, we need to find and replace. First, we need to find orthography. At this point, I'll normally email back and say, can you send me the fonts or send me the art with the fonts outlined? So first, I'll show you how I find the font. I'll open up a new window. I'm going to type this off screen, orthography, font. And here you can see there's a file under font. So I'm just going to download that file and we're just going to install that font. So it's installed and you can see it's updated all that art, which is great. Now the next step is you want to outline all those fonts is the next big problem we have. We'll work on finding this image and how to do that next, but we'll do the fonts. So firstly, we select all the fonts. Now the reason you want to outline is that way you don't have to supply the font to the print shop. You might have paid for a nice font. You don't want to go, oh, here you go. Here's a nice $200 font for free, or it's a company's font. So this is for Mac, but I'll put the shortcut up for PC. It's Command-Shift-O, and that creates outlines. And now that's an object, not a font. You can't really edit it anymore. You can't edit it as a font, you can edit it as a drawing. But this means it'll look exactly how you think when it goes to print. You don't have to supply fonts, you don't have to worry about it not appearing when the printer opens it up in a different file. So that's a big one. Make sure your fonts are outlined. If you forgot that, can't do the shortcut, come up to object and you can just come to expand and go object fill, expand, same thing. All right, now we normally have a template. Some companies will have a template so you can lay the art. Now make sure, so you can see all these layers locked. Just only work work on the art layer will help the designer on the other end of the printer put the art into their own template. So don't flatten these or don't save it out as one layer, because they can toggle between what's on and what's off, which makes it easy for them to see how the art looks. Now, also read anything they've put in here too. We get a lot of people going, oh, these pink lines printing on my artwork. Well, no, they don't. That's just the die for the cutting of the box. All right, now everything on the art layer. Okay, now we'll go back to the image. So this image is in here. It might even come through pixelated. You think it's embedded. Obviously, it's from the PDF. It was there and now it's not. That's because the file doesn't exist on my computer. There's two ways you can do it. Send this file with your artwork if you're unsure, or you can relink it when opening the file, or you come into Window and come to links here and see here we got a broken link. Just click on that and we can find the link. So relink from CC libraries. Well, that's if it's online, so stuff that. I don't leave anything on there. So we'll go here, link from file, matchbook art, and we'll see bird image. So we just go bird image. Okay, see how it's loaded perfectly. Now come to properties. This image is just sourced off that file I've just linked. If you want to make sure it's in the file, embed it. Now another thing to do is, this is a small print. You really want to zoom in. This is true with anything, and actually see how it looks zoomed in, and we can talk resolutions all day, but just if you're not sure about resolutions, just zoom in. If it looks pixelated when you've zoomed in a fair bit, then it's probably not going to print that well. Also, the bigger the better on smaller objects. We've done the color mode, fonts outlining. Yes, another thing is colors look different on every screen. How it looks on my screen, how it looks on your screen, and how it prints. Unless you're using Pantones, you can't get direct matches. With small print runs, you're never going to deal with Pantones. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. So don't supply Pantones. Even if you give hex code, it's going to be different on your screen. It's going to vary, but we always do the best to match what we think the client's color they're looking for, but you won't get that from every print shop. Just a quick resolution one. If you're worried about the resolution, you just want the image to be 4 times the size that it's printing at 72 dpi. So if it looks good on your screen, you want it to be 4 times the size of that. I could make a whole video on resolution, but I'm not going into that right now. Like, we print at 600 dpi. A normal screen's only 72 dots per inch, and that's not, again, it's there's a lot to it. And then a 4K monitor is normally 233 pixels per inch. It can change by how big your monitor is. The smaller it is, it might look clear. So yeah, it's a whole thing. It's just, if you don't know what you're doing, just supply the biggest possible image to the designer, or embed the biggest possible image in the thing, or even better, just work in vectors, and then you don't have to worry about resolution. And if you don't know what vectors are, go to my library. There's videos on SVGs and you can have a learn about that. But yeah, we've got all the things here. So we're going to Control C all this, and we're going to put it in the template that we were just showing before. So we're only going to use the art layer and we want to dump it in. Now, as you can see, the person who supplied this, it's not even to scale. So this is another thing. So this is where we normally actually scale the art accordingly to make sure that it looks good. So I'm just going to do that. We'll speed through this. I'll probably speed this up. And yeah, this is smaller. Probably the best way to do this is actually drag it over and just holding shift when scaling, work to that angle. And now we're just going to square those off, and that's going to have to come down because of that. But we're going to take this off, take this off, take this off, and maybe we'll get rid of the info so we can just sort of see how it looks. Much better. Now, say this had color. That's what this bleed area. So put the info back on. See how we got the bleed? That's when you want color. Say your print goes over the edge, you want color. So let's give this a nice red background. So I'm just going to do that. So you're just making sure that it's the length of the thing, and we're moving it to the back. Now, there's another thing about having images embedded. It's harder to change colors of stuff. So say that looks that. Now I can do something pretty cool. We just image trace, black and white logo, okay. And then we're going to expand, pull out image. I'm just going to make that all white. I'm not going to fiddle with getting that wing sorted, but say you want a color to go all over the edge, or you want an overlap, you need to have bleed on your art, and that's what this extra line is. So you don't put things you want printed. You don't want details like text going into there unless you want it actually lopped off. But the reason we also have bleed in most prints is printers and guillotines can slide by, a little bit, sometimes up to a mil, but we really try and get it well below that, and you need that buffer zone. So that's what bleed is for. So if you want color, that's bleed. So just check your bleed. If you want full color, don't just send us art. That's where say you want a red background and you've just filled it into here. There's no bleed. If we print it like that, it could shift and you could have a nice white streak on the end of your box. All right, we're just going to revert back to not having that. All right, another thing is true black. CMYK 100% is not true black. It doesn't print perfectly black. To get the best black result, you want to add 30% cyan to your color, and that way you'll just get a much darker, richer black. Now you've done all that. You want to test print it and actually have a look at how it looks at the size. So when you're going to print, say you wanted to print your art, you want to go print, this is someone else's design they've sent me. You want to print actual size so you can actually see how it looks. This font might even be too small. I've not even had a look. These are the matchbooks we do, but printing actual size, then you can make adjustments. Not unsure, like this date might look too small and you want to make it bigger. So these things you should check. Now, always double check your spelling, dropped images, because you can see when art's open, something could not appear, might have been blank and the design didn't pick up on it. So just triple check it's all there, because once you say okay to print, then there might be a tiny little detail that you wanted on the art, but the designer didn't notice or the printer didn't notice. When saving out any artwork to print, obviously you've made sure it's outlined, CMYK, you've checked your bleeds, you've embedded your files. That's a whole nother thing, file size, sending it. Well, if if it can't go by email, then your linked images are too big. Then you should use a website like WeTransfer or Dropbox, and then you'll be right. When you're saving the PDF, just make sure you're saving as that you're preserving Illustrator editing capabilities, just so that it doesn't flatten the artwork and the designer can sort that out for you and reduce the back and forth. So you don't have time, or you don't have the software, or you've watched the whole video and you're overwhelmed. Well, we do have a small setup fee to fix the art for you. As you can see, we're quite capable of doing it. It just takes us extra time and does incur an extra cost. This is especially important if you're using Canva. You will need a setup fee, as even when it saves out, you can watch some other videos I've done. The SVGs have many layers to them and stuff can drop. So if you're using Canva, you will probably have to pay a setup fee. Although Canva is good for mockups, it's not good for precision printing, especially on packaging and high-end print jobs. The pricing obviously depends on the complexity of your design, so please email us first before ordering and we can tell you what that cost is. It is small, but it does scale, and that address to email us is in the description. If you need any art file fixed, we can do that for you, not just if it's matchboxes. So feel free to send those too. The reason I made this video is I do like to give the client the opportunity to do it all themselves. You have good art files, most of the time you get the art quicker and exactly how you wanted it. Now, I hope this video helped and made it a bit clearer on how to save out files for print. If you got any other design questions, just chuck them in the comments below and I'd love to answer them for you. Before I went out on my own, I had a job producing large-scale prints for a big vitamins company, so I can show you how to save out art in InDesign if you'd like to, but need to see the interest for that to do that video. So let me know in the comments too if I should make that one. And if you like this, hit the subscribe button and probably watch this video that has been recommended for you, the one that's sitting right here. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.